Ever felt like your After Effects preview is crawling, even on a powerful PC? You're not alone. I was working on a tight deadline, and my timeline just refused to play smoothly. But after digging deep, I found what was slowing things down and how to fix it. In this video, I'll show you all the tricks I used to make previews fast again. Let's speed things up. Before we jump into fixing the slow preview, it is important to first identify what is causing the slowdown. In this project, you can see that my frame render time is around 14 milliseconds. This means each frame takes that much time to render. If you notice a green color indicator, it means that the preview is running smoothly. After Effects gives a very clear view of what layer is causing the delay. To check this, simply right-click on any column in the timeline, go to Columns, and enable the Render Time option. You might need to hide a few other columns to make space, because this column takes up some width. Do not worry, you can bring back those columns later, anytime. Once enabled, you will see exactly how much time each layer is taking to render a single frame. For example, if you turn on an adjustment layer with blur applied, you will notice that the render time increases drastically. When you hide and unhide that layer, the frame render time keeps changing. This means the blur effect is heavy and may slow down your preview. So if the effect is not necessary right now, you can turn it off temporarily and enable it later before rendering the final video. Now take a look at this layer. I have applied motion blur to it, but the switch is currently off. If I activate it, you will notice the render time increases again. The color will shift from green to a more yellowish green. This gives you a visual way to understand which layers are affecting your preview performance. Now let's see some of the points which can help you to make the After Effects faster. The first step is to go to the Edit menu and choose Purge, then click on All Memory and Disk Cache. This clears the cache files that After Effects creates for preview purposes. You should delete these files frequently, especially after finishing a project, to keep your system running smoothly. The next step is to go to Edit, Preferences, Memory, and Performance. Here you'll find the option RAM reserved for other applications. Set this as low as you can manage. I usually keep it around 6 gigabytes since I'm using 64 gigabytes of RAM that gives After Effects more room to breathe. Below that, check for multi-frame rendering. Also, be careful with the CPU allocation. By default, After Effects can use 100% of your CPU, but that can cause performance issues with other apps. It's recommended to reserve about 10% of your CPU for system tasks. Going lower might make your system lag or freeze. The best part? When you step away, After Effects can continue rendering previews in the background thanks to multi-frame rendering. It's a big time saver. If you are working on any After Effects project and you are not able to preview it in real time, there is a simple trick you can try. Change the quality of the playback. Instead of using full resolution, you can switch to half, third, or even quarter resolution. This setting does not affect the final output, it only changes the preview quality. Depending on the complexity of your project and the number of effects you are using, one of these lower resolutions might help your system handle playback more smoothly. You might be thinking, if this reduces the quality, then what is the benefit? The answer is smoother playback. When you are adjusting keyframes or watching motion, you just want to see how it moves, not how sharp it looks. Sometimes this trick works perfectly. Other times it may not help much, depending on your system or effects. But it is always worth trying before moving to other fixes. The next step is to go to the Window menu and choose Preview. You can also press Ctrl and the number 3 to open it quickly. This will bring up the Preview panel. Now, I like to use a shortcut to start the preview. My preferred shortcut is numpad 0. Here comes the interesting part. You can control the frame rate of the preview from this panel. Lowering the frame rate reduces the number of frames your system needs to process during playback. If you are working on 60 frames per second, you can preview at 30. You will also see an option called Skip. This lets you skip one or more frames during playback. For example, skipping one frame will play only 15 out of 30 frames each second. This trick is especially useful when your project is too heavy to preview in real time. Even though the motion may appear a little jerky due to the lower frame rate, it is helpful when you just want to see how everything is coming together. This setting can save time and reduce frustration when working on complex compositions. Use it whenever smooth playback becomes difficult during editing. The next step is to go to the File menu and choose Project Settings. Inside this window, look for the Video Rendering and Effects section. Here you will see 3 options for rendering. I prefer to keep mine set to Mercury GPU acceleration using CUDA because I have an NVIDIA graphics card. If you are using a different graphics card, you might choose OpenCL instead. This setting allows After Effects to use your graphics card to help with rendering, rather than putting all the load on your processor. The next option is to use faster presets. What do I mean by that? In After Effects, there are multiple types of blur effects. If you search for blur in the effects panel, you will see many options like Gaussian blur and fastbox blur. You might wonder why there are so many different types. While each blur has a different algorithm, some give very similar results. For example, Gaussian blur and fastbox blur often look the same in many situations. Let's say I apply Gaussian blur to a layer and increase the blur amount to a higher value, like 174. It gives a nice soft blur, but it also takes more time to process, especially if you are using several instances of it in your project. Now let's try the fastbox blur instead. If I apply it and increase the blur radius to match, the result looks nearly the same. The big difference is that fastbox blur is much quicker to render. So if you only need a basic blur and speed matters, go for the faster option. The next option is to trim your existing composition. For example, if you are only using 4 seconds of footage but your composition is 10 seconds long, there is no need to keep those extra 6 seconds. They are not useful and will only slow things down. Since we have enabled multi-frame rendering, After Effects may start rendering the entire composition in the background, including the unused part. To trim the composition, just right-click on the work area bar and select Trim Comp to Work Area. That's it. The composition will be cut to match the work area, which helps make previews and renders more efficient. The next option is to turn off motion blur. Motion blur takes a lot of time to render. After Effects understands this, so they have provided a single switch to disable motion blur for all layers at once. This means you do not need to turn it off for each layer individually. Turning it off can drastically improve your preview performance. However, do not forget to turn it back on before you render your final project. If you leave it off, your final render will not include any motion blur, and that could affect the overall quality. So keep this in mind. Here is a smarter way to increase your preview speed. If you are working with multiple layers but only need to focus on one specific layer, you do not have to preview everything at once. Instead, find the layer you are working on and solo it. This hides all the other layers and shows only that one. Make any changes you need while previewing just that layer. If you want to see how it looks with another layer, you can solo both of them together. Since After Effects is not previewing all layers, your playback will be much faster. Once you're done with the adjustments, make sure to unsolo the layers before final rendering, or your final video will include only the soloed ones. This method saves time during heavy projects and helps you focus better. I hope these tips have been helpful to you. Which trick worked best for your workflow? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I will see you in the next one. Until then, good luck and peace.